My name is Christopher Skaken. I am arguing for gray wolf protection in the United States. I will begin with a quote from a famous conservationist that is called the father of environmental protection, I believe is his title. And I will continue with a little bit of a history on the topic, start with an introduction, move into my major claim, and then into my secondary claims, and then conclude it for you guys. In his 1949 essay, conservationist Aldo Leopold stated, "Only the mountain has lived long enough to listen objectively to the howl of a wolf." There are two species of wolf that are present in North America, the gray wolf and the red wolf. I will be focusing on the gray wolf as the red wolf applies to the southeast of the U.S., and I'm looking in the northern Rocky Mountain region, which also affects the Endangered Species Act listing for the 2012 delistment. Both species of wolves have subspecies. An example is the Mexican wolf, which exists in New Mexico and Arizona. Generally speaking, gray wolves originally were in all of North America. Currently, they're only in Alaska, down to the northern Rocky Mountains in Idaho, and then east into Michigan and the Isle Royale National Park, which is an island in the northeast of Michigan and then the southeast of Minnesota. Prior to European settlement and westward expansion, over 200,000 wolves lived in the lower 48 states alone. Over 500,000 lived in all of North America at that same time. Due to manifest destiny and the livestock industry and the railroad industry, it led to Congress and the federal government enforcing and encouraging people to go hunt wolves and other top predators such as grizzly bears and large elk for their antlers and so on and so forth. The only wolves at that point that were left were in the far north, remote woods of Minnesota, and then on Michigan's Isle Royale National Park. In 1973, the Endangered Species Act became law, and the Fish and Wildlife Service obviously endorsed it. They're one of the main bodies who enforce it, as well as the Department of Interior. One part that they strictly enforced, and it's cited on their website, the National Park Service, Department of Interior, several conservancies such as Wolf Mountain Conservancy and so on. They wanted to create a recovery plan for the northern Rocky Mountain wolves. At the same time, Canadian wolves started to come into the northern parts of Montana in the 70s and 80s. That led to an environmental impact statement in 1994, and then that also backed up a previous recovery plan set in 1987. The EIS, which is the environmental statement, required the following for the delisting of gray wolves. And that was the numerical goals, which was met in all three states, and that is the main reason why they were delisted. The problem is with genetic diversity within all three states where they were reintroduced. They were reintroduced into central Idaho, eastern Montana, and western Wyoming. In April 2011, Congress passed a legislative rider, which is essentially a bill to fully delist the species. The problem with this was there was 23 bills that Congress saw in April of 2011. The only one they passed was the delistment of the North American gray wolf, which is Canis lupus. My major claim is that wolves are a keystone species that are vital to ecosystems and their corresponding food chains. I will begin by stating how wolves benefit their ecosystem. I will mention their intelligence because that pertains to their territory and use of the environment. And then I will conclude with the need to relist them as an endangered species in all states. Wolves benefit their environment because they naturally regulate small to large sized prey. They typically hunt large hooved animals such as elk, deer, caribou, and moose. Smaller prey such as raccoons, rabbits, and beavers are also commonly hunted by them. An interesting fact, less than 1% of livestock kills, which is the reason everyone is pro-delistment of the gray wolf, less than 1% of livestock kills are from wolves. More are from coyotes, which are related to wolves, but they're Canis latrans is their scientific name. So people will see a coyote attack a sheep or a cow or something and blame it on a wolf. That is a problem because that's not identifying the species properly. Wolves self-regulate their pack size by taking into consideration their territory size. So that means the larger territory they cover, the more prey available, the larger the pack size. Typically, packs are from 4 to 20 wolves or more. In Yellowstone, the Lamar Canyon wolf pack has had up to 32 wolves at one time. Alphas are the breeding pair. If you guys have a little sibling, you probably saw Alpha and Omega, or they wanted to go with you. It was an animated film about wolves. Alphas are the parents. Omegas are down below them, betas are below them, and then omegas are kind of like the outcast and little pups. Wolves are highly intelligent animals that maintain their territory. Obviously, they communicate by howling. A common misconception is they do not howl at the moon. That's kind of funny. All wolves howl in the same key as whales and dolphins, which is key E, and each wolf has a very distinctive howl, so you can tell one from the other. You can tell the alpha from all the others because they generally have the deepest. Moving on, Rick McIntyre works for Yellowstone National Park as a wolf researcher. He's been doing it for over 18 years. He has consecutively seen over 4,500 wolf sightings in a row. And he stated that there are no two species so similar in behavior as wolves and human beings. Wolves need to be relisted as endangered species in all states, because only in specific environments, such as in Idaho and Montana, are they genetically diverse as well as fully recovered. In Wyoming, which that was exempt from the 2012 delistment, they are not genetically diverse. They're all still greater Yellowstone area wolves that were imported from Canada. And the very popular Yellowstone Lamar Canyon alpha female, her tag number was 832F. She's commonly known as Wolf 06 because she was born in 2006. She was heard around the world because she was shot just 15 miles outside of Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming. 15 miles. Wolves do not understand political boundaries. They have their territory which they cover and protect. They protect their family. They're very social oriented. And they look forward to having their parents come home with meat for supper and so on. Just last Monday, on the 20th, one of her pups was shot inside Grand Teton National Park on private land in holding. There currently is a lawsuit filed against the hunter who killed the wolf. You can follow up with it online. You can just Google and you'll get countless websites for the wolf. That's very sad, and that's part of the problem, that wolves need to be protected nationally in every state, regardless if you can hunt them or not at the moment. I personally have met several full-bodied wolves. I have gone to Wolf Mountain Sanctuary in Lucerne Valley several times, and it's an experience that you'll never forget. I highly recommend you guys go because they're extremely intelligent, caring, friendly. They'll come lick you and play with you. They're smarter than any dog you'll ever meet, and they're not threatening like the Hollywood and mass media portrays them. So please, protect the gray wolf.
Yeah.
All right, so on. Sorry, so on.
You're gonna go look it up right now?
Yeah.
You guys look at this.
In the Northern Rockies. So.
All right, Christopher, you need an editor. You need somebody looking over your shoulder telling you, this is too much. You went 3 minutes and 50 seconds into your 6-minute allotment before you got to the major claim of the speech. So you were basically 2/3 of the way through your allotted time before you got to the main claim. There's a lot of information that you're presenting. Most of it's background information, and most of it isn't really relevant to the claim that you're presenting. It's interesting to know that wolves don't howl at the moon, or that there's a pack that's got 37, or I'm not sure why I'm listening to wolf pitch and why that is relevant to the argument that you're making. Except, ultimately it's trying to get us to empathize with the wolves and relate to them in some way. That's a persuasive appeal. Let's stick with the argument here. Your argument basically is that the the removal of the gray wolf from the protected category is a mistake. It is a problem. It's going to cause a harm. And the reason for that is because even though the numbers are up, the diversity is not adequate. Without adequate diversity, the long-term prospects for the wolf are problematic. And even with the current rules, we can't protect the wolves adequately unless we have even more restriction on them. That's basically what your argument is. You need to get to those kinds of points and take a lot of other stuff out. And it makes it interesting, but it doesn't really advance the claim, and it's confusing at times. Like I said, especially since you get, I mentioned 3 minutes and 50 seconds. By the way, that's about halfway through your speech. So even if we weren't just talking about, how much you're supposed to have, it's still halfway through the presentation, and that's too late for the proposition to be coming in. So, like I said, you need a good editor. You need somebody sitting over your shoulder saying, that's not relevant to that point. Let's get to the essence of the argument. When you make the argument that it's a keystone species, I'm going, okay, so the argument here is that there's going to be some danger to the environment or to other species because of the wolf disappearing. And then I never hear about that again. It never matters that the wolf is a keystone species. So why is that the proposition that you identify? I don't know. Like I said, it seems to me like your point, it could be summarized by those issues that I mentioned before. That, I think, is ultimately what the argument is, that the removal of the wolf from the endangered species limitations is a mistake. It's going to cause a harm. It's going to produce a negative outcome. That's what your claim needs to be. And you're on the brink of making that argument in a lot of places, but it gets buried in a lot of other material. All right. I like the passion with which you were speaking about the wolf. I mean, you clearly have some credibility because of experiences that you've got. I think you could probably get all of the stuff that you had there in the first minute of the speech, get to your argument, and be a lot more effective as a consequence. All right. Thank you.